Hello and welcome to a new episode of Silver Blue. I'm Silvia and I'm here with
BluJay, baby, what's going on?
I'm really excited to be here again in this new episode. Last episode we talked about how important to change your identity, right? And how identity shift equals reality shifts, and when how you can start changing your life once you realize you're not the victim of your life, but you're the hero and you have control over your life. In this episode, we're going to talk about what to do with that. Because once you have control over your life, when you decide to stop being the victim and start taking control over your life, then you can start writing your own story. That's what we're going to talk about today, how we've changed things in our lives and how we've manifest um, things that has completely changed our lives. So, Blue Jay, what's the first thing that comes to your mind about this topic, writing your own story?
I would have to say, the first thing that comes to mind is the fact that we're constantly telling ourselves stories subconsciously about who we are, where we come from, the lives that we have lived before, and the lives that we desire to live. So I
Mm-hmm.
feel like when it comes to writing your own story, first you have to take into account all of the stories you're already telling yourself. So, for example, we may have in the back of our minds, for me, like one day I want to be famous. I want to be successful. I want to be the ultimate artist who inspires other people to become their ultimate selves. And that's a story that I have or that I tell myself I want for the future based on
Mm-hmm.
things that I know from the past. Like I know I've been a great influencer when it comes to YouTube, when it comes to dancing, when it comes to being an online influence versus an in-person influencer.
Mm-hmm.
So using all the stories I've told myself right now, I'm creating the character that is the protagonist of my story. I'm creating that version of me, which is the next thing that it reminds me of becoming the character of your story.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something I could definitely dive into. But what about you, first of all? Like, how do you feel about writing your own story? What comes to your mind first?
Yeah, I love that idea of becoming the main character, right, of your story. The
Mm-hmm.
main character, the director of the movie, right?
Absolutely.
So when you take control of your life, suddenly you're just not one more in that movie. You're the main character, and then you can start taking action, right? And for me, writing on your own story involves what you're gonna do in the future. So like manifesting the things you want in your life, but also what has happened in the past. So everything that has happened has already happened, so you might be thinking like, I mean, you can't change that, right? But you do have control over that, because there's something you can change about the past, and it's the meaning you give to that past. And that's so important, because that's what affects you right now. What affects you about the past is not what happened or didn't happen in your life, is the meaning you're giving to that. So you have the power to change the meaning of the situation. You have the power of change the meaning of that difficult childhood that you had. You have the power to change the meaning of that thing that happened in your life that really shaped you as a person, that really changed the way you started get involved with people. Like it's just like it's a matter of changing the meaning, right? And finding like the hidden treasures of what happened to you, because all the difficult situation, all the challenges, everything that happened in your life have hidden treasures, have lessons that you learned, and thanks to everything that happened to you, you are right now in the position you are. And it's what's going to make you become the person you want to be, right? So for me, that's also an important part of writing your own story.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. And you said something that caught my attention. Um, is giving meaning to the stories that, made your childhood. For example, if you had a bad childhood, you can look at it one way or the other way. You can look at it like, this is what happened to me, and because of that, I act like this. And because of that, my future is going to be like this.
And in that case, you are you're acting from the victim perspective, right?
Exactly.
As we were talking in the last episode, you're blaming the outside world for who you are instead of taking responsibility.
Exactly, exactly. So that's the first way. And
Hmm.
the moment you decide to change it, change your outlook on what happened and say, it didn't happen to me, it happened for me. Or even when it comes to writing your own story, you give your own meaning, your own idea of what went down. So let's say as a child you were bullied. Um, you could change the way that looked. So as a kid, no, I wasn't bullied, but I was misunderstood because I'm special. You
Hmm.
look at it like that, it's like, okay, well, why am I special? Why was I special then, and what makes me special now? Why did I not get along with all these people, these children, whatever the case? Why was that? And you can write
Hmm.
the answer to it. You can choose why you were different. Why was it that they picked on me? Is it because I'm smart? Yeah, it must be. It must be because I was smarter, more artistic, more social than anyone knew how to appreciate at the time. Now,
Hmm.
I'm not being bullied because I know how special I am. It's all a matter of what you choose to give attention to, shine light on, and what you decide you want to take from that era of time.
That's so important. What you decide to give attention to. That's the
Absolutely.
key point. And for me, it's also like it's also what was the lesson that came from that. I
Yeah.
feel like every every challenging situation, every difficulty that comes in our lives, it's there to give us a lesson. There's something we have to learn from that that is gonna make you evolve. So it's important for me. It's something that really changed my way of seeing life. Always pay attention to, like, okay, so this challenge that I'm facing, what's the lesson behind this? Like, what's the thing that I had to learn from this? And um so like my mentor talks about this as like the mirror in a car, el espejo retrovisor. I don't know what's
Mm-hmm.
the name in English, but
The rearview mirror? Type
yeah,
of, okay.
yeah, the one that says like be aware, well, whatever.
Objects are closer and yeah, yeah, yeah. I got
Yeah, yeah.
you.
So like basically the idea is that um the time that it takes from you, from the moment you face that challenge to the moment you learn the lesson, that's kind of like the distance in the mirror, right? So like
Mm,
the shorter the distance, so the shorter the time you spend between the challenge, the difficult situation, and learning the lesson, the faster you will evolve, because
mm,
you're going to spend less time uh, being like, poor me, this happened to me, and you're going to understand why that happened, learn the lesson, and keep moving forward. And another thing that happens is that challenges come to your life, and if you don't learn the lessons, they'll come to you in other forms, right? Like that's why we
Definitely.
say we have patterns, and things kind of like feel like we it's they are repeating themselves. They repeat themselves until we learn what the universe is trying to teach us, right? But if we don't listen and we just like blame the outside world, it's just gonna keep happening and happening.
Definitely. That's some pretty sexy tips right there. We're keeping spirituality sexy. That's what we said we were gonna
Definitely.
do.
It has to
Definitely.
be.
Gotta be. It's the only way. So
Definitely.
it makes me think, um, I feel like this is a very important thing that people should know about writing your own story. Once you become conscious of the fact that you can do this, be as creative as possible. I would say sit down and write out uh, your 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 character's personality traits, number one, and then just free flow. I would say just imagine the best life you can imagine living in, and write everything about it down. Write every detail: how you wake up, what energy you have, how successful you've become, the people that you have around you, the grateful, like the gratitude you feel from everything, the relationships you have, the status you have. uh, I would say literally write your story down, or at least your character and all your traits.
Do you know what I did when I
Mm.
started a few months ago, when I was like starting to experiment with this, and I create like a few weeks after I created this like vision that I shared the other day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um what I did is that I wrote an interview I had with myself, like with my old self with myself in 10 years. So it was this interview in like a newspaper or something that was talking about how successful I was. And it
Mm,
was like the interviewer was interviewing me about my success.
that's fire. I love that. Like, that's
Mhm.
perfect. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, put yourself in your future self's shoes and see what kind of things come from that. Like, write down. I love that a lot. Like, you gave yourself an interview as if you were you 10 years from now. You're bridging yourself to that moment. Like, that's so sexy.
Yeah, exactly. And
That's
then there
fire
were,
though. Like,
so it was like,
it's
they,
making those small little changes now before it happens that put you ahead, that instills and enforces the fact that you are becoming the story as you write it.
Mhm.
So that's perfect.
It also connects you with that successful person you want to become. And
Absolutely.
then I don't know, one of the questions of the interview was like, what would you tell your young self, right? And like, what would you tell that, like, what would you tell yourself like 10 years ago?
Yeah.
And then you can connect to what you need to know. It's crazy, but you
Yeah.
actually know, unconsciously it's there. You know what you need to do in order to become that person. So I feel like this kind of exercise really help you connect with that part. um and I think
Yeah.
I wrote something like, that I'm proud of her, and like I would tell her that it's worth it. I don't know, just things that you need to know, because that's gonna like give you energy and motivation to move forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I have another key thing I think is important, right? So my mentor has been giving me some very stand up advice lately, right?
Hmm.
And the thing about significant emotional events,
Hmm.
C's, really stands out to me. So in 5 areas of life, you got health, finance, career, let's see, relationships. And what is the last thing I'm looking for? I always forget it.
So it's relationships,
Uh-huh.
finance,
Uh-huh.
I guess your professional life,
Career,
career, family,
health, health.
health.
And what was the other one? I forgot the other one.
Well, there's five.
Five. Anyway, each one of those you tell yourself stories about, right?
Hmm.
So a good thing when it comes to writing your own story is writing a story about each path there, each
Hmm.
significant emotional event or category of life. So if we're talking about relationships, you first take the details of your past relationships, whether they're loving relationships, family, friends, whatever. But you take those
Hmm.
parts of yourself that you know yourself to be in those specific relationships and you crack down on how you felt. For example, how did you feel when you broke up with an ex or an ex broke up with you? How did you feel when you were feeding the relationship and it was good? How do you feel as an older brother or an older sister? What makes you a good or bad older brother or sister? What makes you a good mother, a good father, whatever the case. And when you take these details, you look at them very thoroughly and figure out what you do identify with and what you do resonate with and want to keep as a part of your character versus what you want to eliminate. And I feel like this is the core process in mastering your personality is by shaping the things you like and dislike about who you've been in relationships, how you've been with your finances, how you've been in your careers, and etc. So in each area, you look at what you do identify with and want to keep for your character in this new story you're gonna write, and the things that you don't want, you leave it. Right? So
Hmm.
you're rewriting who you are and who your character is going to be in each
Yeah.
area, right?
Yeah, there might be things that they were useful for you in the past, but they don't serve you anymore. And you need to
Absolutely.
be willing to let them go, right? There's this quote that says to become your best version, you need to let go 80% of who you are right now and
Yeah,
what your
that's
life
deep.
is about. Um, and there's only 20% that's gonna stay. So yeah, in all the areas of your lives, ask yourself, is this part of my 80% or 20%? And if it's part of the 80, you just need to let it go.
Gotta let it
Um,
go.
just be aware that for that reality that you're writing to become real, you have to make a lot of space. So it's like when you clear up your closet or your room or your house, whatever, like, or your phone, like, in order to like make more memories, make more pictures, make more videos when you have a
Yeah,
phone, you need to have space, and for that you need to delete a lot of things, right? So yeah, I feel that's an important part. I think it's a useful process to do um every like once in a while, and also every time you're about to like write your own story, right? Because just be aware that you need to make space for that new story to become real.
I definitely love that breakdown. That's perfect. So I have a question for you actually.
Okay.
I want to ask you, who is Sylvia Serrano? Like, what defines your character in life in this story that you're writing for yourself? What are your character traits?
My character traits.
Hmm.
um could you give an example of yours first?
Absolutely. BluJay is a sexy, charismatic, multi-talented artist. And some of the traits that make him cool and attractive to the masses are the fearlessness. I would definitely say like smooth talker with the ladies at times, but very mysterious, very hard to figure out because there's so much magic that you just don't know where it comes from. And that is something that he uses to get around in life and in the world and make big things happen. And long locks, super cool swag, the way he dresses, very fashionable, able to be in front of cameras and have an internet personality, but also very different behind the cameras. These are a few things that make my character, I would say.
I love it. I love it because it's also an exercise, like a self-esteem exercise, right?
Certainly.
Like when you're doing it, like get out of all these limiting beliefs of like, but like, how am I gonna say that about myself? And just like actually start saying it and actually believe it, right?
Right.
You can't wait until other people tell you how good you are, how great. You need to like believe it and
Believe
like
it, sin pena.
yeah, exactly, sin tema. Because um if you wait until they say it, then once they say it, you're gonna be like, yes, I'm like so powerful. But when they stop saying it, and they will, because like success is like that, sometimes you're up and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you're down. Then when they don't say that, and or when someone suddenly doesn't agree, your self-esteem is gonna like,
Yeah,
it's gonna be weak. It's not gonna be strong enough. So what you want to do is to actually know who you are without the need to other people to tell you how great
yeah,
you are. You need to know. You just need to know. You just need to trust that you are that person. And then other people will say it, of course, because they'll start saying it once you believe it. But
definitely.
you need to believe it first, and you need to know you're that person first. Um, so who am I? I am a brave, empowered woman who inspires and guide other people in their journey of self discovering, and an authentic soul who
Definitely.
shares her truth and inspire people in that journey, I guess. I,
Mm-hmm.
I I feel like I still need to do this exercise a bit more, but I guess those would be like the main traits of personality: brave, empowered, authentic, inspiring.
Perfect. That sounds like a pretty mystical character, I would say. So, what's your story? If you could give a brief summary of what your story looks like right now, or what you want it to be, either thing, or how it once was. Like, give an example for me of a story that you resonate with for your own life.
I guess this, for example, a change of story was, for
Mm-hmm.
example, when I finished university, I was telling myself this story of like, I am this journalist or communicator who is gonna mm, start telling other people's stories and inspire people through that stories. And then that slowly started changing. I feel like it's the same, like 20%, like the essence, like the main thing of that, that is like inspiring and, inspiring other people. And it's still there. But instead, right now, I feel like instead of feeling myself just like a journalist, I feel myself as a mentor to other people, or
Mm.
kind of like someone who can help other people in their mindfulness and self-discovery journey. And when that change started happening, and I started creating that sort of story, then I realized so much more was possible. And also I realized the reason why I studied what I studied, because if I studied communication, then what I have to say to the world, as a mentor, as someone who guides other people, it's just going to be easier, because I have the knowledge of like making podcasts, making YouTube videos. um, so I feel like that part is more like a tool, so I can use it to actually communicate what I'm here to communicate, right?
Mm.
And also use my journalistic skills to like being able to give voice to other people in this world of spirituality, mindfulness, so they have a window to talk about their truth and what helped them, and inspire other people as well.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. um,
What
oh,
would you say?
well,
Well,
go ahead, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, what's the story you tell yourself
Okay,
about your
nice.
life?
That works. I had a question, but I forgot it. It'll probably come back to me. But so I've always been pretty colorful, like pretty imaginative ever since I was
Hmm.
a child. And one of the main stories when I was younger that I used to tell myself is that I have superpowers, right? That's because of all these spiritual gifts that I've been blessed with. Um, the ability to, I would say clairvoyance, which is the ability to see things um, beyond the physical realm, whether it's visions or some people may say angels, whatever the case, right? But that was something that as a child really helped me cope with everything that was, being revealed to me. So that was just an example, but like I can I can say one story that I wrote for myself that really helped me a lot to this day is that so when I came here and moved to Colombia
Hmm.
and started openly expressing my artistic colors and becoming a dancer and started to realize that everybody was enjoying my presence anytime I stepped on the streets. The story I
Hmm.
began to tell myself is that I am the king of this island and it's a show, a grand show every time I step out. So when they see the king walking amongst the people, it's like, holy shit, it's him. And everybody starts dancing and celebrating. And that is literally what it was. Like, oh, buenos dias, mi rey. Everybody, mi rey, every
And I've
time.
seen that. That's how I
Yeah.
met you. When we first
Exactly.
started, like when we met and we were walking, everybody was like, "Oh, you're back!" Like you.
Yeah, you're exactly. So, like, you got to step into the story. Actually, you're a very important character in this story. Um,
Mhm.
Matter of fact, like, yeah, you remind me of. Well, before I say you have something to say.
Well, I was gonna say, I was just gonna highlight how important it is. I think this is part of the story you tell about yourself right now, right? So
Oh yeah.
you always tell a story about yourself. We're always telling stories. That the way
Hmm.
we cope with reality and the way we understand reality is by telling stories. That's why we love so much. That's why we love stories so much, because um it's the way we understand the world. So if some, that's why when you tell the story of someone and how that person faced a challenge and that made them evolve, that's how we understand. That's what makes us understand things, right? So it's the same with us. We always tell our story about ourselves. So just pay attention what story you're telling. You can consciously tell yourself a story, or you can unconsciously do it. And when you do it unconsciously, probably you're telling yourself many things like, no, like I'm not good enough at this. I don't have self like discipline. Like I'm really
Yeah.
bad. I don't know, with
Yeah.
discipline, like being constant doing something. I heard this thing so many times lately, like people telling me like, no, but I would love to do that, but like, yeah, I am not a disciplined person, or things like that. That's the story you tell about yourself, and that's what becomes
Exactly.
real, because that's who you think you are. And if you think you're that person, then you are that person. um
Yeah.
so I think what we're saying here is that you have the power to choose who you are and to choose what you want to think. It's all about what you choose to believe you are. So you actually have the power to feel like, I'm the best person in the world. I'm this king that everybody loves, and then people will start acting. When they see that in you, there's this quote
They
that
agree with
says,
it.
"When you change your identity, the world will change, because the universe needs to make sure who you are is real." I just
Oh,
translated from
yeah.
Spanish, but basically, like, if you change your identity, everything around you is going to change to make sure you're real.
Literally.
so, so just, yeah, paying attention to that, it's super, super important. What were you going to say?
Absolutely. Not like, I mean, first of all, you have the power to change your entire reality by simply writing your own story and correcting your own identity, right?
Hmm.
And the thing I want to add to that is the one reason that I was able to see myself always as like a king or a magical, demigod is because as a child, I was always drawn to books and movies like Percy Jackson and the Olympians or A Knight's Tale. All these stories about a warrior or a hero who is on their journey becoming that hero or that warrior or that king. And it's something
Hmm.
that ever since I was young, I always resonated with. And so growing up, keeping that imaginative state active in me, always seeing life as something like a mission or a battle or something to overcome in order to get to the level of kinglihood or divine warrior or demigod. Like, so as I was dancing and stuff like that, I would think about it like dance is my magical superpower. It makes people drawn to me. It makes people smile. It changes their energy. It shifts the entire environment. And that's magical. So I use that. I would tell myself, this is my magical superpower. It opens doors for me. It brings me money and opportunities and great connections. That's exactly what happened. And this is something we're probably going to mention in maybe the next episode or episode after, but staying in tune with your inner child is like one of the highest keys to writing your own story, creating that character that you're proud of. So, like, one thing that I really keep doing pretty constantly and consistently is thinking of myself as the guy I wanted to be when I was a kid. So, like, when I was a child, I would look at movies and see the super cool character who can do backflips and charm people and super cool. I was like, man, I want to be that. Now I am. I told myself that's what I want, that's who I want to be. Slowly start changing my actions from a higher perspective to now. And saying, well, if I want to learn how to backflip, I should at least start learning how to jump high enough to attain one.
Definitely.
Connecting with the inner child, like it keeps you, it's like a compass in a way. And we'll talk about it in another episode, but that compass is something I use to definitely make sure that I'm on the right track. Stay imaginative, stay a big dreamer, and realize, that if I want to be this magical person, this magical creature, then, I have to embody those traits. So I always ask my inner child, what are those traits? But yeah.
That's beautiful. And it reminds me of how I see, um, when you find your purpose, also like as a compass of where you want to go. So I feel like that's, like
Hand
connecting
in
with your
hand.
inner child and finding your purpose. I feel those are like the perfect compass to know where to go. Yeah, we will
Absolutely.
talk more in depth in another episode. I wanted to ask you, can you give an example of exactly what you do when you want to manifest things in your life? I know you've done it sometimes through songs. I know
Yeah,
sometimes you write. So can you share a bit of how you do it? Because it really
absolutely.
fascinates me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, one thing I noticed actually more recently is that my music is one of my most powerful manifestation tools ever. And I only really just started getting super serious about music maybe as of a year ago. And one line from one of my songs, I'm a King, I made a song called I'm a King. uh, that song, it talks about all of the things that I feel make me that king that I was just mentioning, the one that people are excited to see, the one that people, come out and is, oh, it's him. The streets know his name. Like, there's one
Mhm.
line in that song, which, mind you, I wrote while I didn't even write the song, but I recorded it through while I was working in a warehouse in the United States. Literally, in
Mhm.
between shifts, I would just say something to my phone. Da-da-da-da-da. Okay, I like that.
Love it.
So, one line in that song is, no Disney, I live a sweet life on deck. I related to something in my childhood that I always thought was super cool. This show, Sweet Life on Deck, it was these twin brothers who like live on a cruise ship rent free. They don't
Mm.
have to pay for it or anything. They live there. It's kind of like their hotel or whatever. Um, when I was saying that, I was imagining myself like on a boat. Vaguely, I didn't have much detail, but when I wrote it, I was like, no Disney, I live a sweet life on deck, take flights, I ain't even got to chase no check. And something about it I just resonated with, even though I was nowhere near any water or anything. I just felt it. I was like, one day I'm gonna be rich enough to be on a fly boat, um, and not have to pay for it. Now, every weekend, I'm driving a boat full of excited tourists, and it's fun for me. It's always fun. Like sometimes, of course, it's work, but it's a little bit of, I wouldn't even say stress, but something to be attentive
Challenge
to.
to
Yeah,
keep evolving
exactly, exactly.
so you
But
don't get
it's
bored.
cool. Like I'm island hopping for a living, and
Hmm.
I keep thinking back to that song every time. I'm like, wow, like
Hmm.
before I knew it, I was manifesting into the music. And then the reason I
Hmm.
wanted to
That's the
use
power of manifestation.
exactly and the power of music.
Hmm.
One thing I can't, I want to say it was a mentor that told me this as well, but music is one of the most powerful elements in the universe. So using that to manifest is one of the things that I have to hang on to.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think music is so powerful?
I would say it's a language. If you think about it, it's a language that everyone can understand. Everyone in the world. If
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
can't, you may not be able to understand the lyrics of a song,
But
but
you can
everybody can
feel
move and feel
the
to it.
vibe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's probably it has to do with the frequency and like just getting into that state even when you don't know exactly what the words are, but it's just like that state and that feelings that that come from that music, right? But we'll
Absolutely.
talk about that. That's another episode as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a whole nother episode.
So what would you say would be the most important things when you're like manifesting, either through songs or like writing them down? Like what's the thing you take into account?
The most important thing I would say to take into account is the fact that we are all creators. So be
Hmm.
creative when you're talking about manifesting your life. Like as creative as you want to be. I wouldn't say hold back on anything. Dream big. Like
Hmm.
create. You're pretty much here to be a creator, a mini creator. So yeah,
Hmm.
keep creativity levels high, whatever you got to do.
Yeah, sometimes we're afraid of dreaming big, right? Just in case it doesn't happen and our
Yeah.
expectations get broken. But
Hmm.
if you don't dare to dream about it, then there's no way you can get there, right? Because it things happen twice. First it happens in your mind, and then it happens in real life. When everything you do in life, you need to first imagine this and then actually do it, right? We would not be here recording this podcast if we hadn't pictured ourselves actually recording it in our minds and then being like, wow, that could be a cool idea to do it, right? And
Yeah.
then we're actually doing it. But because we were able to dream about it, picture it first in our minds, and then make it real.
Absolutely. I'm so glad we did too. I feel like it was so organic and it happened in the perfect timing and like it's a
Mhm.
story that we decided to write together, which is beautiful. Like based on different stories we were telling ourselves, like the common um what's the word? The common interest in
Mhm.
saving the world somehow, becoming heroes to share with the world. Um, that crossed both of our story arcs, and we decided, well, we can maybe do this together. You know what I mean? So that was
Mhm.
perfect. Two dreamers put it to the same test, and boom, like
And it helps us keeping each other on track, right? Because one thing is knowing all these things, and you can know all this. Like so many people, there's so many knowledge in on the internet, and like you can find so many things. But what makes the real changes when you start integrating in your life, and like repetition is key for that, right? So like you can hear things once and be like, oh, that sounds interesting. Then you hear it a second time and you're like, I actually start, I'm actually starting to understand that. And then a third time, and then, so like maybe there are things here that we're repeating, but that's good for the listener to, so you get more into it. And also for us to remember, to keep it present in our life. That's so
fresh in
important.
our
That's why
lives. Yeah,
every morning I read my vision. That's why every morning I do my morning meditation. That's why it's so important to like things that are important, to keep repeating them and having them close, like nearby, because that's when, because you can know things, but you're gonna forget if you don't keep them present. I feel this podcast also help us keep this present in our life.
absolutely. Like I'm excited for this podcast every week. I know the listeners are too, but I'm excited because like every time it gives me that fresh reset and that motivation to go back out and continue on this spiritual mission. Like above
Mhm.
all else, I feel like everything is spirit and awareness. Like it's spirit before it's material, like so coming back here is the safe space, the Zen zone. Ooh, that sounds nice. I like that. Anyway, the zone, like it feels good. What were you gonna say?
Well, I wanted to share. I think, well, one part of me is like, should I share? But I feel like I wanted to share one of the main, like the most magical things that happened to me when manifesting my reality. And
Okay.
the reason I'm a bit like, should I, should I not? is because it has to do with you. It's like I literally feel like I manifest you into my life, and I've told you sometimes. Um, but I don't think I ever shared with you like the the whole
Go ahead. I'm
story.
listening. Because I was
So
going to
like
mention that too, actually.
every time I think about it, it's just it makes me like it makes me so it makes me see the magic of life, right? Because the way it happened, like, well, I went through some months of like really frustrating months in like what has to do with love. It
Hmm.
was great. Like I felt like I was having feelings for this guy, and this guy was like not paying attention to me. Then there was another guy who was starting having feelings for me. I had no feelings for that person. And then there was other girl who came from all from France, who was in love with this guy, and this guy was in love with me. So it was like kind of like like a chain of like amor no correspondido.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
and I was like, what is wrong? Like, what is going on? Why is all so like not flowing in this way, right? And I remember, so in all I think one of the craziest thing is how fast it changed when I make the clicked. I was starting to work with my mentor, and I was telling her about all this crazy story. And then so we what it was like, I arrived to Santa Marta, and like we she or no, I think it was like in Medellin. So like in Medellin the week before going to Santa Marta. So the week before meeting you for the first time, she was like, we had this session, and she was kind of like guiding me and like asking me like, what do you want in a relationship? And at the beginning I was like, I was hesitant. I couldn't dream big enough. I was like, I don't know. I want to first. I don't know. Like I would like to be with someone. I don't know. Like I don't know what I said. Like a healthy relationship. And she was like, that sounds boring. Just dream big. Like what do you really want? Like just let yourself like dream big. And then I started saying more powerful words like, well, I would like someone who I can be with that feels like an adventure. And like, and then she was like, yeah, okay, and how does he look like? And like,
Yeah.
and I was like, well, super sexy and all this. And like I allowed myself to start dreaming big. And
Yeah.
like I would love, I would love someone who is like, who wants to become his best version of himself, and who I shared interest with, and who's what else did I say? Something like that our lifestyles like kind of like complement each other, and
Hmm.
all those things. And then she was like, yeah, like write your list. And yeah, and she told me something like, she was like, um now that you have the list, like there might be people who come to your life, and there are like 90% that, but there are 10% that are not. If it's not 100%, you need to be able to let it go, because it's not what you want. And it's only when you know what you want, and you are only gonna you're only willing to get it, or like say yes if it's 100% what you want. That's when the universe will give you the 100% that you want,
Mm.
right? Because and she was like, there might be people who are like 80% what you want, and they're almost perfect, or like they have all these things, but then these other things that you don't want. You need to have it clear that that's not what you want. And then just don't be afraid, because in that moment you might be like, oh, but like it's good enough. Like what if nobody else comes in for example, in this case, or if you're looking for a job, like what else? What if this job is pretty good, it's not exactly what I wanted, but what if I don't get what I wanted? What if I say no, and then I don't get what I wanted? And so I think there's this part of being brave, and being brave first to dream, and being brave to say no when opportunities that are not 100% what you want come, so you can actually get what you want. And the proof is that
Mhm.
after doing this, a week after, it was crazy. It is crazy. And also
Yeah,
the way it happened, like a week after we met, also in a super magical way.
yeah.
um so I was telling my mentor, like, met someone who i think he I think he's 100%, and she was like, well, just make sure she's not 90%. Like, and I was like, well, I will. But it feels like it, because
Yeah.
it was so magical. And then, when, like, of course I didn't know if you were 100% by that time, but then as I got to know you, and then this word, you've also used those exact words, like adventure, like so many words that I used in that list that I was telling her in that session, that it's just crazy. It suddenly is like, how, it's like exactly what I said. It's crazy.
Yeah. That is so dope. That is a beautiful testimony. Perfect story. And you could take elements of that and apply it to all areas of your life. And it'll be just as fast, just like that. You
Hmm.
know, that's
It
beautiful.
is crazy how fast things can go once you dare to dream about it.
That was a beautiful story. I'm glad we manifested each other because honestly, I told you this before, but I wrote a song about you before I knew you, you know? um, so yeah, it kind of feels like around the same times. That's the thing. Two people will manifest each other, like, and that's when it clicks. So
Hmm.
I'm writing stories based on love, writing music based on love, and then I remember openly talking to you about it like around our first date.
Yeah.
I was just like, yeah, man, like, I'm looking for love, honestly, like, but something real, like, not something fake. I don't want to talk about fucking TikTok memes and like, I want to be
Yeah.
able to really connect. Like, oh, this elevating quickly.
Yeah, I was like, well, okay, that's fast.
How many girls do you tell this to? It's
Yeah,
like,
that's what I thought.
yeah, but little did we know, like, we were the ones we were expecting that whole time. So that's pretty dope.
Hmm.
All in all, what I would say with that, to wrap it up a bit, is like live life with the open hand policy. What you want to have is yours as long as you are accepting and believing of so, you know?
Hmm.
Um, Open hand policy.
I feel like, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I feel like it has a lot to do with living in abundance, right? So, like,
Hmm.
knowing that everything you want in life, everything you need, everything you already are, everything you need, you have it. So when you live
Absolutely.
from that point, you're not afraid of letting opportunities go, because new ones will come, right? It's just, if you live in abundance, you'll have everything you need. And from that place, that's the place where you can create your reality, where you can write your story and make it happen. I think for me, the highlights would be like, be brave and dare to dream big enough, and just write your own story. Like, just write what you want, and you can start experimenting with little things, and you realize how powerful this is, and then you'll be like, okay, well, let's dream a bit bigger, maybe, and then a bit bigger.
Absolutely.
You can start small if you want, or you can start big, but just take control of your life and start writing your story.
Yes. Do not be afraid to be creative and imaginative and, yeah, dream super big. As big as you feel like you can. There is no ceiling to these dream realities that we wish to live and have the ability to live right now.
Hmm. We're limitless. The only barrier is ourself and our limiting beliefs. So you can dream as big as you can possibly can or dare to.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for this amazing episode, Jay. I feel like, well, I love talking about this and, like, remember all these things and remember how powerful and magical these tools are, how magical life is. It's amazing. It's amazing
Yes,
when you start living from this perspective, what you're
it is.
able to do. So I'm happy we had this episode. I hope it was useful for the people listening, and we'll see each other in next episode. Thank you so much for being there. We
Thank
love you.
you. Take care, beautiful travelers.